Welcome to Viewpoints. I'm Heather Isbron, and with me today is Dr. David McIntyre, Vice President of Academic Affairs with the National Graduate School of Quality Management. Welcome, David.
Thanks. Appreciate you being here.
So you've had quite a career so far, 30 years in the military and 20 years designing and teaching national and Homeland Security strategy to senior Homeland Security leaders across the country. So tell me about the evolution of Homeland Security.
Well, the good news is that some of that was overlapping, so I didn't really start in the McKinley administration. I did spend about 30 years in the military, and toward the end of that, I had the good fortune to be at the National War College as part of the National Defense University and focus on creating national strategy. And you know, it's better to be lucky than it is to be good, and I happened to be in the right place at the right time as Homeland Security was emerging. Actually, historically, the first record I can find of the term Homeland Security goes back to the time of the first Quadrennial Defense Review. And that's followed by a panel called the National Defense Panel that looked at the first QDR. And that National Defense Panel, chaired by Phil O'Dean, uses for the first time in one of their chapters, they suggest that the Department of Defense needs to look at, in the future at this concept of defense of the homeland. So I was at the National War College at the time. We called in Mr. O'Dean, had him speak to the students, and began designing a curriculum that would reflect this future concept of how you defend the homeland. And from that, developed the concept of Homeland Security. We did that and built the first course in Homeland Security at the National War College. I retired just a little before 9/11, joined Randy Larson and Ruth David at Answer in Washington, D.C. They established the first think tank in Homeland Security. And so just before even the government spun up on the subject, we were writing and thinking and trying to figure out how do you apply the concepts of national security to Homeland Security. So we really got ahead of the subject. But we had a limitation that we didn't realize at the time, and that is that Homeland Security, as we've discovered over the last decade, is much more than simply the question of of national security issues. There are local, state issues, emergency managers, people that are really involved on a day-to-day basis on public safety rather than national security or civil security. So this has been a great learning process for me over 10 years as I started at the national level and then thought about the Department of Defense and the CIA and so forth, and have had to come to the realization that CERT teams and local communities, fire chiefs, firemen, police, all of these folks, local mayors, the business community, all of these folks have a role in Homeland Security that we've sort of come to understand over the last decade. It's been an interesting trip.
And what do you think it takes to build a Homeland Security education program? Some of the challenges, maybe, and some of the best practices?
Yeah, I've worked with this at a number of institutions. I've had the good fortune to work at George Washington University with their Homeland Security program. I've taught at the LBJ School, at the University of Texas. I ran the Homeland Security program at the Bush School for some time at Texas A&M University. I've spoken at the Maxwell School a number of times up in Syracuse. I've worked with the folks at Long Island University, the Northcom Education Officer, and of course now with the National Graduate School. And this is a real challenge because we are embarked on a new area, an area where no one really has explored anything quite like this before. This is interdisciplinary studies, is the way you'd put it in academia, on a national level. On a national level. We have a wide range of experts in everything from intelligence, satellites, technology, cyber issues, health issues, critical infrastructure, and all the various realms, right down to sociology and anthropology. We have a wide range of experts. We all know generally what we want to do, but pulling it all together under a single framework, a single rubric, if you will, to understand what this has been a huge challenge, and we haven't solved that problem yet. The good news is we have a lot of very good people working on a number of schools that are engaged now at a variety of different levels. I'm very happy with the curriculum that I'm seeing developed. I think the Naval Postgraduate Schools program here in particular has just become the gold standard nationwide on what you should aspire to in the way you select your students, the way the students progress through the program, what you require of them, the way they maintain their alumni organization after they're done, the variety of backgrounds that the faculty bring to the subject. I mean, it really has been a gold standard. But in a minute, maybe we probably ought to talk about some of the challenges, academic challenges as well.
Yes. Yes. So you've been in the classroom here with a number of other faculty members and talking about the curriculum challenges, the curriculum best practices, as well as just some of the content of the different programs represented around the table. How's that experience been for you?
Oh, it's excellent to get together and listen to the way people are approaching this from different perspectives. Because it is a subject where there isn't a single best way to do this. Now, this is normal in academia. If you're an economist, you would expect to get one approach to economics if you go to the University of Chicago, and a different approach if you go to Harvard University, even though they're all working sort of within the same space. And here we're working within the same space. We have schools that approach this really from their core strength is law enforcement. Others, their core strength might be fire science. Others, their core strength is political science. In the program at Texas A&M, our departure point was international affairs and international relations. And so to bring those wide variety of perspectives, some are here from medical schools, some their lead is sociology, to see those wide perspectives brought together, then you're able to share these various ideas about how do we actually move forward on Homeland Security, because getting this wrong is very dangerous. This is not something where we're just playing with this as academicians. I mean, the outcome here really matters to real people. If we get this wrong, we have the chance of giving up too many liberties, spending too much money, and by the way, endangering the nation if we get the concept of teaching, training, and education in the field of Homeland Security wrong. So I'm delighted to see the different perspectives that help us move in what I think is becoming the right direction.
And speaking of getting it wrong and declining budgets, not even spending too much, but maybe spending too little, what do you see as kind of the danger signs for academics and declining budgets?
Well, let me start with a problem, and then I'll end with a solution, which is the solution my school deals with right now, just a niche solution. One of the problems is that when President Bush first began talking about Homeland Security, when he initially established the Department of Homeland Security, you can go back and look at the speeches in which he suggested that he expected to see the Homeland Security in the United States to cost about $100 billion a year. About a third of that out of the private industry, about a third of that out of state and local budgets, and about a third of that out of the federal budget. Now, if you just follow those numbers for about 10 years, you take that percentage for the federal government, adjust for inflation, you'll see at the end of a decade, we're about where President Bush anticipated the federal government would be in spending. But state and local governments haven't spent that money, a fraction of it. As a local mayor told me recently, Dave, nobody's ever asked me, how's your biodefense program? But my people who vote for me ask constantly, when you're going to fix the potholes. So state and local governments have been looking for grants, not federal money. And industry, at least until Katrina, was not interested in spending their money at all. And now, while they do follow up on business continuity, it's not necessarily focused on Homeland Security issues writ large. So what you get is a huge gulf between what was anticipated a decade ago and the amount of money we're spending today. And so we just haven't been able to do all the things that were probably required in Homeland Security. We're under enormous pressure, even more pressure today, because I see declining budgets, not growing budgets for the future. So what I see as the greatest challenge to Homeland Security today, the single greatest challenge, is the question of how do we satisfy the customers who are out there? Congress, the President, the different federal agencies, voters, states, business communities, students. How do we satisfy those customers? How do we do it with fewer funds than the past, reduced resources? And then how do we do it in a sustainable way? Not just these one-year tricks like we'll cut postage this year. How do we satisfy customers in the field of Homeland Security, do it with fewer resources, and do it in a sustainable way? Now I mentioned niche. That actually is exactly what the National Graduate School addresses. They are the National Graduate School of Quality Management. They take the concepts that many companies have been using for a decade or two to produce better products at a lower price systemically. And now we're looking at questions of how do we apply that to the field of Homeland Security? How can we improve intelligence delivery using fewer resources? How could the Border Patrol improve its business, its routine cycle? And we've had a number of student projects that have actually been very interesting in this regard, where they've been able to save significant resources, And let me mention time as one of those resources, significant resources, while still producing satisfactory results or even better results. So that's one of the areas I see where we really could make progress in the future in the field of Homeland Security.
And so for Homeland Security education, with the different universities and agencies, or basically the universities losing funding, what do you see for the career path of these students that are in all of our classrooms?
The first absolutely critical aspect of that answer is that the universities have to engage that question. And that is a criticism that I have of the academic community as a whole in the United States. They have not as a whole, and individual schools have done very well, but as a whole, I don't think academia has been interested enough in the future and the destiny of their students. This is not just about teaching your class, faculty member. This is about what is your student going to do with that material when they get out? How will they be a better citizen? How can they care for themselves and advance in their career? Now, the good news is that the field of Homeland Security is both broad in that it reaches every aspect of health and touches critical infrastructure and every level of government and business. It is both broad and specific, in that you can get that broad background and then pursue specifically business continuity, specifically cyber, specifically electrical power generation, specifically questions of transportation and port security and so forth. And so there are the opportunities for the students. There are not a lot of jobs out there with the title Homeland Security, so you just sort of pick it off of usajobs.com and say, oh, that's mine, Homeland Security. Instead, what you're going to have to do is for students, be very creative in taking what you've learned and match it with the language requirement of the jobs that are available out there. And when you do that, I think you're going to find employers are delighted with what you're able to do if you have a program that provides this broad background, a depth in a specific discipline, and then you're able to adapt it or translate for the employer how those skills apply to their jobs. But that is something the students have to do themselves, because we are not far enough along in this field yet that the employers all yet have the clue on the right language to use to describe what the students know.
That's right. And getting to that point, really, the sharing of curriculum in academia is virtually unheard of, and sharing and collaborating even. So tell me what that means to be able to do that in maybe like a venue like this.
Well, first, it is very difficult to do because whether we like it or not, we live in a very competitive society. And so there are limited incentives, frankly, even in the academic community, for the sharing of information until you're able to publish it yourself and then sort of ride that as part of a reputation. Certainly in the business community, there are limited incentives. Look, in an election cycle, every governor is essentially competing against every other governor, so there's a reason to keep his success stories quiet. How, in fact, did you increase jobs in your state? And that's why it takes some sort of a catalyst, and the Naval Postgraduate School, and specifically the Center for Homeland Security, has acted as that way in this discipline. It takes some sort of a catalyst to collect people, collect information, promote that exchange of information, tell the success stories, act as sort of a warning on those things that are off track, be a attractor for good people and good faculty, and then offer those names to other people. One of the interesting aspects of this from a faculty perspective is the field of Homeland Security has not thus far, and I don't think in the future, has not been a generator of a large number of full-time faculty positions. I don't anticipate that. First of all, it's very hard to take established faculty members who have careers in political science or economics or sociology and get them to invest the time and effort that's required to learn Homeland Security. I mean, I work at this about 20 hours a day for about the last 12 years. This is not easy. Secondly, it's difficult for the other many practical professors we have to take their experience in law enforcement or the military or in business and come to grips with the special needs of academia, understanding what a taxonomy is, coming to grips with what teaching a 3-hour graduate class means, the various ways of assessing student progress, and then assessing your own curriculum and how to change it. Melding those two together is very tough. And so it takes a unique organization that has some long-term, full-time people with that academic background who can accept and are willing to accept and encourage practitioners to come aboard as faculty, learn these special faculty skills, and then communicate with students, giving them the best of both worlds. That's one of the things that the Naval Postgraduate School has been able to accomplish in the field of Homeland Security. They're not alone in that regard, but certainly they're a leader in that regard, and I think that's one of the reasons that you collect so many schools that want to be your university partners.
Well, certainly we appreciate your time and coming here today and sharing with us your perspectives. Thank you again.
Yeah, I appreciate the invitation.